What's happening, everybody, and welcome back to the Funky Brain Podcast. My name is Dennis, and this is my Funky Brain, and I am excited to have a beautiful, awesome woman with me today, a storyteller, philanthropist. She's the founder of Seeds of Exchange, which is an awesome program that I will let her tell you more about, and she's the author of Live Ablaze and Soulfully Ablaze. Sarah Davison-Tracy. How are you doing today, Sarah?
Oh, so great. I'm so glad to be with you and the funky folks and have a cool conversation. This is awesome.
The funky folks. I love that. So tell us a little bit about Seeds of Exchange.
So Seeds of Exchange is, speaking of DNA, it's been part of my DNA since I was a kid. And it's all about gathering people together around, as you said, storytelling, this belief that we all have a gift to give just in our being, and finding ways to share and make life better for people. So we just look to inspire and ignite tangible ways to make a difference. One of the things that I love talking with people about is when there has been a season in life, a moment of pain that now you can look back on and you can be like, wow, I see the purpose in that moment of pain that now is truly a gift.
Sure, yeah. Well, and it's funny, I was going to ask you a similar question because my
No way.
Well, I mean, people that listen to me know that my background is rooted in recovery from alcoholism and addiction and stuff like that. So I had like 13 years of pain, and there was the car accidents. Car accidents.
You just made up a word. I'll take it.
Yeah, and the failed relationships and the financial problems and the failing health, and just like I almost died hundreds of times. So, I finally reached that. What they call the rock bottom, that place of just, I couldn't take anymore. The thing with alcoholism and addiction is it's sad, and it's a multi-part thing. There's that physical part. I had that craving, and anybody who drinks and wants more will understand. And that's everybody who's had drinks. You're like, oh, let's keep going. This is fun. But there's the physical part where it's like, I take a drink and now I want 1,000 more. But there's also that mental part. It's like an obsession. Like, I have to have it, and then I'm going to do anything to get it. A lot of people think, well, why can't they just stop doing that because it's hurting them? But I didn't have that choice. So I had years of pain that led me to change. It's that the insanity, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over, expecting different results.
Yes.
So I would wake up and cry and look in the mirror and have these dark circles under my eyes and say, who am I? It was like a bad movie. And I would just say, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
And then I would walk over to the freezer and grab my Jack Daniels that I had left over from the night before and start drinking. It was awful. And that was my pain. Now, if you want to take me out of that, and having been sober for 17 years now, just because I stopped drinking, life didn't just turn around. No. It required work and more pain. And then then there was financial problems that I had. I started a bunch of businesses, and most of them failed, but I had one that really took off, and I did really well, and I made lots of money. I was on top of the world. I was traveling around the world, going scuba diving, hanging out on beaches. And then I lost that. That was really painful. That was a big one in my life. But, I think that when you talk about addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs or food or sex or whatever your addiction is, like, there's an underlying reason that you're doing that. It's the behaviors. It's your personality, your defects of character, your shortcomings. It's your, like, not just I'm drinking, but why am I drinking? Like, understanding it on a deep level and then trying to change and grow out of that. And that's why most people fail at sobriety, is because it's hard. You're doing what people say other people don't do. Everybody always says you can't change. And so I'm changing, and it's hard to change, especially in your 30s, 40s, 50s. Like, when other people have grown up when they're supposed to, in their teens or 20s, and learning responsibility, learning about relationships, and to be a good person. I stopped growing emotionally at the age of 15. So fast forward to 31, I didn't have any skills on how to live.
Yeah.
And so, all those things brought me to a place of pain that helped me to grow into who I am today. And so, ironically, we don't have to dwell on me because most people that have listened to my crap already have heard a lot of that stuff, but I wanted to hear that from you. So was there a specific pain point in your life that helped you to grow into who you are, that helped you write these books and start Seeds of Exchange and to be the philanthropist, the person that lives their life to help other people?
I kind of have two things that come to mind. One is like not necessarily, I had a nearly life and death moment, which I'll talk about in a minute, that was kind of a thunderclap moment for me. But as significant as that for me have been the moments of just profound struggle and figuring out how to be human, like dealing with messages of like, you're not doing enough. You are totally lacking. You don't have what it takes to do life. Why can't you figure out your purpose on the planet when everyone else has, like, all the things? And then being a perfectionist has been something that has really at times crippled me. And being like the very gifts that I have, like my love of people or my love of, wanting to make a difference. On a bad day, I'm not good at saying no when I should, create a little space between the notes, as we say, or my passion to make a difference. Sometimes I'm not balanced. So I get tired and I hustle on a hamster wheel for too long, too hard, too fast. So all of those, and the challenging messages, I call them like diminishing messages. All of those things it's like just the everyday crucible moments of like life being hot and uncomfortable and painful. And for me, how I see it is burning, like literally burning out the crap so that there is more clarity and more peace and more calm in the center of who I am. And for me, the how and the why and the what of that are these books, the messages I've shared in there, which is don't go life alone. Like we need each other. And there have been times in my life where I've gone life alone, and those have been the rock bottom moments of my life. For me personally, my connection with God is like the primary sense of roots and flourishing and freedom and joy in my life. So it's just daily, not even like daily, but like momently, like I have this passion and this picture of like, how can my life be a prayer? Not just how can I be prayerful, but how can my life be a prayer where every breath I'm experiencing God and all things and all people. The more that happens, the more awesome life is, no matter the pain. And then, yes, this sense of finding ways amidst the commitment of really disciplining and the hard work, as you say, of how do I care for people and love people, and how do I do that without the hustle, the striving, the challenge. And so for me, the greatest moment of pain has been in the moments when those pieces were kind of in that crucible of like, life is struggle and life is hard. And then the beautiful moments of pain are when I experience like the crucible burned off the crap. And, there's definitely still crap to be burned off. Like I'm a quirky human being that has bad days too. But it has truly, my passion for life has really come out of tending to and sitting with those painful parts of me and saying, not today. By God's grace, by the love of people around me, I'm going to rise and stand tall.
That was awesome. A couple of things. Well, one you said, and that's why when you may have looked and I was like writing something down. How can my life be a prayer?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. It's
It
like,
doesn't matter your spiritual tradition or even if you believe in God. It's just everyone knows what there's like a graced space in that. Like, you know, a walking, living meditation, you know, from the time we get up until the time we go to bed. And the thing about it is this isn't like Pollyanna. It's not prayer because it's all rainbows and fairies flying around. It's like, no, in the grit, in like, you know, going into the dark places and saying in my life or in the world and saying, no, because of love, because we are connected, because I have a passion and a purpose on the planet, and I believe you do too, then for that reason, all can be well and life can be prayer, even when it's a disaster or it's hard or it's unknown or it's chaotic or whatever the things are. So that's why I love the message of that, because it's like very human. It's very real.
and that leads me, well, the next thing I was going to mention besides that, because that was my favorite thing so far that's come out of this, although all of this is awesome, but that was awesome. Love that. Yeah. But the other thing that you keep saying, you've said, I think 4 or 5 times now, is human.
Yeah.
None of this is confined to Sarah or to Dennis or to an alcoholic or to a black person or a white person or a Chinese person. Like, it's the human condition. We're all and it goes back thousands and thousands of years, a million years. It's like we all have fear.
Yeah.
We all have insecurity.
Yep.
We all want to be somebody amongst our peers. Yep. Right? And these are human feelings, human conditions, human thoughts, the human condition that we all suffer from. So you can cope with that human condition with outside things like food or alcohol or whatever your drug of choice is, or you can like face it head on, and get what you're supposed to get out of it and then move beyond it. And that's how you see really successful people. They become successful because they have the same fears, insecurities, wants, and desires as we do, but they've found ways to get through them and get to the other side. And then you keep doing that because right after you get through those, there's more. And you keep getting through them. There's always more. I used to joke about this, the happy. So if you ask people what their goal is, it's usually one of 2 things. Almost always, 99% of the time. It's I either want money or I want to be happy. Those are usually the 2 things that people say. Okay. So let's take money aside because we all want money. So happy. And I say, well, there is no like Mount Happy. You don't just climb to the top of happy and you're there. I like what people say is that happiness is a verb. You have to be happy. If you want to be if you want happiness, be happy. If you're not happy, find a way to be happy. Like, it's your responsibility. The world owes you nothing. If you want something that you think is going to make you happy, go get it. Go after it. It's your responsibility to do that. Nobody is going to wake up in the morning and be like, all right, well, I have to take my kids to school and get something to eat and exercise, but first I have to go make Dennis happy. It's not going to happen, right? So you have to wake up yourself and say,
your family doesn't wake up and have that be their purpose to make you happy.
Well, sometimes, but most of the time it's my responsibility. So I have to wake up and say, all right, I have to take the kids to school. I have to get something to eat. I have to exercise. And what else can I do to make me happy?
Right.
So that was my thought on happiness and goals. But the 2 things you said, the human condition, that's the one. And another thing I wrote down that you said, which is a big problem, I think, for a lot of people, perfectionist.
Yeah.
Right. So it's perfectionism is also a problem, I think, for a lot of people because, all right, I want to do this and it has to be done this way. And if it's not, then now I'm not happy. Right. So people are attached to that. Yes, and that's the ancient wisdom. Buddha said that 2,500 years ago. It's like our attachments are the source of all of our suffering. So, all right, I started my business. Supposed to be successful. Why isn't it? Why don't I have the money that I want, the relationships I want, the health that I want? Why the president that I want? Like all these things, like everybody's attached to the way things are supposed to go. Why isn't my spouse behaving the way I want them to, or my children doing the things I want them to? Because I have these attachments to how things are supposed to go. And when they don't go that way, which they hardly do, now I'm upset. Now I'm unhappy, especially right now. And especially when something like this happens and you're not on solid ground, when you're not living a life like when your life is not a prayer and something like this happens that just knocks you off your pedestal, you don't know what to do.
And actually, for me, the perfectionist thing actually led to my life and death moment, which I'll speak to very briefly. But for me, I also really struggled with addiction, and I had an eating disorder when I was in my early 20s. And it was embarrassing in the moment. Like, I'm here in the land of plenty, starving to death. That is that for me. I always had this passion for global sisters and brothers, and I knew there were literally people starving for lack of food. I mean, so I had that. So for me, I wish I didn't have to get to the rock bottom moment, but I did. And I, truly did almost die, and got, to just was so knocked off that, I was knocked off and laying flat on the ground, not eating, not clear about my value, my pulsing, destiny and purpose. I was lost. And I really did have a thunderclap moment where my mama came, and I was laying on a couch and under a pile of blankets, and I was so little, like she didn't even know someone was sleeping there. So she went to fold up the blankets, and we both kind of squealed because we knew what had happened in that moment. And she sat down and started crying. And I was like, in my heart, I knew that if something didn't change, my life was not going to last much longer. And the life that I had to live was going to be crappy. And I was like, this is not what my life is supposed to be about. Totally self-absorbed, totally diminished and hiding and tiny and in physicality, but really in spirit and thought. And by the way, if anyone is listening who is struggling, there is no part of that story that I am not willing to talk about. So please reach out to me if that's something that is connecting with you. And I don't want to gloss over the healing, because as you said, Dennis, it took even after the thunderclap, there were some days of looking underneath at what got me to this starving to death in a land of plenty moment. Like, why did I? And that was harder than the moment it wasn't a split second moment of transformation. But the blessing in that is because it was so hard, and because I did have to go so deep and look at these things, this perfectionism, this way of looking at myself and the world in such a small way, it is not for me. I do not see it as an optional, nice way to live. It's life and death. When I see myself going down a path, and I don't go far these days because I can feel it even as I'm inclined to go there. If I see myself thinking in a sort of insufficient, not enough way of thought about myself or someone else, judging, being ungrateful, for me, that is why the flip sides of those things are such a big part of my life, because I know how much it sucked. I know how much it almost took my last breath out of me. So now it's like, I feel like I'm stomping about it. Like, no, you are valuable. You are loved. You belong. We belong to each other. We have this way to live individually and collectively that lights up the world. Those 4 things, they are what makes life happen for me. And they came out of the lack of all 4 of those things, and the almost dying from not believing, not living them. So that's why I love hearing stories of the pain that came to the gift, because they almost are always, tied. I wouldn't be here without having come so close to not making it.
To bring it full circle back to where we started with the coronavirus was, I hope people continue to carry the love and the gratitude that they're feeling now into
Yes.
6 months or a year or 5 years from now. Because I fear in 5 to 10 years, we're going to be right back where we were before this with the anger, entitlement, and stuff like that. But to touch on what you were just talking about, it's like you don't just quit the harmful behavior,
Mm-mm.
the food stuff, the addiction stuff, and then life just is all of a sudden perfect and merry, and you have the money and the health and the relationships and everything's perfect. That's not how it works. Life is still hard and challenging. What do you do
Yep.
when it gets challenging? That's really the trick, and that's where we're building that solid foundation of prayer, meditation, connecting with other people,
Yes.
eating, growing, like finding healthy ways to cope with your human condition.
Yes.
Because life doesn't just like turn around because you stop some sort of harmful behavior. Like that harmful behavior was like, all right, well, it was killing me.
Yes.
It was killing me. So if I stopped for like 3 days if I stopped drinking for 3 days, which I hardly did, I expected people to come pat me on the back and be like, wow, good job for not drinking. But they're all worried about their own stuff. They don't have time to like, oh, good job, Dennis. And it's the same. I'm using drinking because that's my story, but
Yeah. Everyone's
it's,
got there.
yeah, it's the same thing with everything in your life. It's like if you're doing things the right way, like things the right way because you're supposed to, whether people are watching or not.
Right.
You know?
And to not run. I mean, the other thing that I just want to add to that is that I think there can be like this sense of shame or guilt or fear that gets triggered when we are in those rock bottom or just crappy season of life moments that somehow disqualifies you to be able to be able to grow or be able to pull out of it, or no one else is experiencing that kind of struggle, or whatever the thing. But I believe that if we just say, no, this is part of the human condition, when we have the bad days, when we do get overwhelmed, when homeschooling our kids was not part of our training, or whatever the things are, how do we go, okay, where I'm going to take a moment, take a breath, trust that I'm going to be okay, my kids are going to, the world is going to be okay, and how do I respond with a sense of like inspired action, like deep within me, and say, I'm not going to run from this pain, this discomfort, the overwhelm, the fear. I'm going to look for the gift. I'm going to look for to be present and just be there and engage with it. And I believe never alone, when we do that kind of collectively, there ends up being blessings that we could have never dared hope could be ours, that will come. But if we only run from the pain, if we think, oh my gosh, I should have learned this in my 20s, why am I grappling with it? Whatever is on your doorstep is what's your thing right now. And don't be afraid of it, ashamed of it. You're a human being. You're going to get through it as long as you don't go it alone, And may we keep, as you said, the full circle piece. May we just never go back to going it alone and to being separate silos of human beings or countries, because there's so much goodness in having a community that we're connected to around the world.
Yeah, and I think it's important to build that. There are a lot of people that feel alone.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
I think you have to build that
Yes.
community, build that place where you can trust people and go in and say, this is how I feel today, this is what I'm thinking today. The judgment that you talked about, this is how, when I'm doing that type of behavior, it's because something else is wrong.
Yeah.
So figure out what's wrong, but if you have a community to do that with, and I'm not talking a community like 10,000 people, like if you need just 1 or 2 other people that you can trust and talk to and get this out.
Yes. Right.
Right. That's my thing. My problem has always been my funky brain. Thus, the name of my podcast is called the Funky Brain Podcast. So now I'm aware of it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like when I start getting off, it's because there's something else going on. And if I can get this out of here, so I have a handful of people that I call on a regular basis. And sometimes we don't have anything to talk about. Sometimes I'll call them, hey, what's happening? Oh, not much. How are you doing today? And it's just like through that communication and that relationship and that connection from somebody who knows me intimately.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? They
Yeah.
see you. They
Yeah,
see you. Yeah.
absolutely. And when that conversation is over, I feel
Yeah.
better. I react better. I'm not as sensitive. I don't take things personally. And then it's really that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that I have been teasing out over the last, many years of doing this work is that exactly what you said, this sense of we cannot be like intimately seen and know every single person, we can really only have capacity depending on our personality for, a handful. And so it's like, for me, my nudge for myself and, anyone who this resonates with is that it's about building that kind of core, that's soul sisters and brothers that you just keep it real with. When you're on the top of the world, they're cheering for you. When you're at rock bottom, they're pulling you up, like really real. But then there's this sense of still it's not as like intimate where you're quite as, you're not showing your whole self to everyone all the time, but there still can be that sense of how do we keep a sense of profound interconnection even amongst strangers as we like zoom out the camera lens and say, okay, I don't know the ins and outs of your life, what your struggle is, but because you're human, I know you have some struggles. So how do I respond when our lives bump up against each other with a sense of like, I don't know you, but I know you're a human being. I know I know you have desires for happiness. I know you have desires for enoughness. And I'm going to see and love and, send a prayer or send a word, truly a word, if we're having a conversation. And so I do think as we practice this like rubber band of the intimate soul friends and then like the rubber band of like our sisters and brothers around the world that can be soul sisters and brothers, even if they're strangers, it will change how we watch the news. It will change how we see the data of the corona pandemic, because we're like, wow, that person is a mother, a father, a child, an aunt, a grandfather, like also want to be happy. They also want to provide for their family. They are not so different, And so I think if we just lean in, and for me, it's like practicing watching the news as if those people are like, they belong to me the way my two biological sisters do. Like, that would be so hard to have that be going on, in this news story about a stranger. And it feels good to feel connected with people instead of have it be this barrage of news about strangers that we aren't connected to. They're in a distant land that seems like foreign in a very divided way. But no, they're human beings. And it will change us. Change how we treat each other, what we do, how we come through this pandemic, which has a long ways to go. We've got some time to practice this. It's not going to be over in a flash. So we can practice together. And may we practice together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you have a very eloquent, loving way of presenting it, all of your thoughts. I love that. And I think we connect really well.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah, so for those that weren't sure or joined us later, we've been talking with Sarah Davison-Tracy, the founder of Seeds of Exchange, author, storyteller, philanthropist, mother, wife, and just a beautiful person inside and out. And now, Sarah, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you about your book, how would they do that?
Yeah, so I'll send you the link you can put in the story notes, but my website, seedsofexchange.org, links to all the things, ways that you can be a part of, watch some of the stories from friends of mine around the world that will they'll inspire you, make you feel lit up and ready to do your part. Links to my books are there, links to speaking opportunities that I'd love to come and be a part of whatever storytelling and inspiring gatherings people are putting together. And then my email link to email me is in there too. So I would be honored to connect with anyone that's listening and continue the conversation for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate your time. We'll do it again. And
gosh, yes. Thank you, Dennis, it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. I am honored to be a part of the funky world of Dennis and your whole beautiful brand of storytelling. I'm honored beyond. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Humbled. And then anybody who's listening, thanks for tuning in to the Funky Brain Podcast, and we'll talk to you soon. Make it a great day today. Hey, Dennis here. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I need to quit? Or maybe you've tried dozens or even hundreds of times on your own, but you can't do it. If you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, call me now for a free 20-minute consultation. We'll just talk for a little bit and we'll see if you don't feel better. And while we're all dealing with the COVID pandemic, I'm offering 2 free full 40-minute coaching sessions. We'll get you set up with the tools you need to become successful in recovery and sobriety. I know from experience, having been sober since April 8th of 2003, that it is not easy, but you don't have to do it by yourself. I'm here to help. We'll do it together. If I can get clean and sober, anybody can. So call me right now, not tomorrow when you're sick and hungover. Again, right now. I'm here to help. Have a great day.